Hello, hello, hello. We are making a video with my embryo here, and that feels so good. Yes, I have an embryo in my pouch, and he feels so good here with Mama together. And that is how a dog should be lounging and resting every single day. There's the disco light, the blue halo, and I want to talk about something very interesting. Very, very interesting. I thought about this for the last couple of days, and last night I was talking to Paul about this, and I said to Paul that I have the Goldilocks syndrome. Not because my hair is golden, it's fake golden, but because I misunderstood. I thought that was a different fairy tale than I was thinking of. So Goldilocks is a fairy tale I don't even know. That's a United States or English Anglo-Saxon type of fairy tale, I think, Goldilocks. And it has to do with something else. So it has to do with, I guess, with a girl that has to be just right or just perfect or something like that. And there's the Goldilocks syndrome where, because I researched it, where people have to be just right, dressed right, and for the Christian religion or for a job or whatever. And that's pretty neurotic. So, but that's not what I was thinking of when I said I have Goldilocks syndrome, because I don't have Goldilocks syndrome. I'm like the opposite of Goldilocks syndrome, actually. So if I think about this more clearly, I have the opposite of it, because if someone tells me to dress in a very specific way, not too sexy, not too tomboyish, not do this, not do that, I would walk out the door very, very quickly. So that's who I am. I don't put up with Goldilocks type of rules. That is not part of my life. So my life is about, you have to move now? Hold your hand up if you have to move, then I will move the camera. So okay. So for my life, and this is I guess I cut this too deep, but it's a new sweater I made with 2 different arms. I like that sweater, very nice. Comes over the hips. I'm making a lot of sweaters recently, and they're getting better and better. So no, I have my own taste, I have my own style, I'm an artist. That's the opposite of someone who is tethered to social norms. And I recommend to other people to not be tethered to social norms either. So that is what I'm emphasizing in my videos very strongly. So what I had in mind, because I misunderstood it, I mistook the Goldilocks fairy tale for another fairy tale, which I will get to in a moment. I just want to say that there is a Goldilocks zone in space. And that is what we have here between the Earth and the Sun. We have a Goldilocks zone. We have a Goldilocks distance. That means we are not too close and we are not too far. Mars is farther away from the Sun, so which probably creates a problem with the temperature. I don't know. But I'm sure Elon Musk will figure that out with his Elon glass. He has developed an Elon glass named after him because he is the one who discovered it and figured this out, this type of glass that he created. It's a bulletproof glass. I guess it's a polymer type of glass that is very, very, very strong. Probably has some spider web mixed into it. I don't know. I'm guessing now. But this glass, if he creates a quadruple layer, like an airplane window, quadruple layer Elon glass greenhouse structure on Mars, like a loop tunnel or something, or a dome, like a geodesic dome, then maybe the sunlight that comes in when the sun is shining will heat up the inside of that biosphere to a livable temperature, probably to 80 degrees. I'm guessing now. I assume that's probably doable. It's probably manageable. So there was a guy who lived in Alaska, who lives in Alaska, a guy from Asia, who created a large commercial greenhouse there on a property, and the temperature in that greenhouse, even in the winter when it's outside it's 20 minus Fahrenheit, inside it's like 75 degrees Fahrenheit, so, or even 80 degrees. So that's pretty amazing. So commercial greenhouse structures, dome tunnels and geodesic domes, glass domes, that is the architecture of the future. That is the only reasonable architecture there is. So for Mars and for Earth as well, because we will be having tremendous storms in the future. We're already getting tremendous storms, but the storms are going to get worse because of the climate shift effect of global warming and excessive cold and excessive heat and excessive storms in places where they have not experienced this before in the past, because of these weather pattern chaotic shifts that are happening on Earth, because of this so-called greenhouse effect, which makes the atmosphere, which causes an atmospheric warming, and because of CO2 pollution into the atmosphere. So too much CO2 pollution into the atmosphere and methane gas pollution into the atmosphere creates like a greenhouse shield, which then gets heated up by the sun and then creates this so-called greenhouse effect that heats up the planet in general. It heats up places where it shouldn't heat up. It heats up the polar regions, which causes the glaciers to melt, which causes the water level to rise, which causes islands to flood. The Pacific Islanders are not in denial about this. They know what's happening. They know what's going on. And it causes absolutely catastrophic weather pattern. Chaos. Okay, and that's a fact, and we've already experienced it. I don't know if there are any people that are still in denial about this. This is absolutely factual. Of course the string holders will manipulate that situation. And of course the string holders will use this and will greenwash certain situations and will weaponize certain situations and totally dramatize certain situations, and they will catastrophize certain situations, and they will use this in order to control the public and in order to sell you things, in order to make you vote for the person they want. And of course they will use anything, okay? That's a fact. There's no doubt about it. We've seen this. But it doesn't mean that global warming is a hoax, because it isn't. Okay, it's a scientific fact. But yeah, it has been exploited, of course, from the string holders, not from the scientists. So the scientists have come up with the same data on this. Okay, it's factual data, and we can also see it for ourselves. I mean, we see extreme storms happening that have not been happening in the past in certain regions. So that's all factual. But I strayed away from the subject, of course, as I always do. So I want to come back to the subject of... So Goldilocks was the wrong fairy tale. I mixed them up. So the fairy tale I wanted to refer to is actually called Sterntaler, which is a German fairy tale from Gebrüder Grimm, the Brothers Grimm, in the Middle Ages, I don't know, 1700s, somewhere. So it's not really Middle Ages. I don't know when they wrote it. I guess maybe they're older, maybe 1600s. I don't know when the Brothers Grimm were living. I have to research that. But the fairy tales that they have written for children, they are all happening somewhere in the 1500s, actually, and that's the medieval time, that's the Middle Ages in Europe. So that is the time of Till Eulenspiegel and the Minnesingers and Rapunzel and all of these princesses that were living in a castle, and the Minnesingers are their stalkers, their lovers that will come up to the window downstairs and sing up to their windows, and there are many of those songs actually that in reality that have been written. Okay, so Walter von der Vogelweide, for example. I have dug all of that up in 2015 while we were at the other house. I was there with Kenny 1 year. I didn't leave the house. I was just writing my own songs and researching Minnesingers, Minnesongs, medieval songs. And they're very cute. They're very kind of naive and very childlike and very sweet. So, and then as people studied music more and more and more, then it became all more complex, more solidified, with more complex instruments, with more complex string instruments also, and then the composers, as they picked up, then Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, with much more complex compositions and genius. Okay, and Bach, then Mozart, then Beethoven. So 3 geniuses in a row that were picking up from there and making it more and more and more complex and more and wilder. So I always sway off. So, but all of this is very, very, very important. But anyway, Gebrüder Grimm, they were writing these fairy tales that have to do with the Middle Ages in Europe, with the medieval time. And they have to do with poor people, they have to do with the royal court people, with kings and queens and their princesses and the princes, and the drama that played out there. And these stories, they were written for children, and as Jordan Peterson pointed out already, that they're actually quite problematic, some of these fairy tales, according to modern standards of ethics and philosophy. So there's a lot wrong with it, as there was a lot wrong with society during the medieval time, of course, and the kind of brainwashing they have done on their children, and this brainwashing into religion, and there was no separation of church and the public, and public ordinances, and the feudal reign of the royal court kingdom system. So it was all one and the same. The king had his preacher right there inside of his royal court, like a live-in preacher. And often the kings were taking advantage of that and coronated themselves into popes and into preachers and bishops and so on themselves. So there was no separation of any of that. But there were always people, of course, that stood out and that did not accept any of this. And they left and they ventured out into nature, and they built themselves a log cabin, a gingerbread cabin, all the way in the forest. And they were condemned, these people, and they were hunted, they were persecuted, they were chased, they were headhunted, and they were called witches, of course. And most of them were women, because women suffered the absolute most under those regimes. They had absolutely no say. They were slaves, just like the Middle East views women today. So they're like 500 years back in time in this way of, they have not been able to move ahead. The women have not been able to emancipate themselves in their societies. And that was very much the case in Europe during the medieval time. And these fairy tales from Gebrüder Grimm reflect this also. And it was always expected the most from women. And this particular fairy tale that my grandmother read to me when I was about 3 or 4, or even 2, she read that fairy tale to me many times, and other fairy tales, and that was very sweet. She and her best friend, and they were such sweet women, and her best friend Anna Helms was also telling me fairy tales, and she was making her own little sculptures out of pebbles and rocks that she would be painting. And she liked photography, and my grandmother also wrote poetry, and Erna was writing poetry as well. So they were very sweet friends, and I liked hanging out with them. I will never forget them. And hanging out with them before my brother was born, I was always parked at my grandmother's, and then Erna would, we called her Ernie, Tante Ernie, we called her, and she would come over and we would have cake together, and I would have milk with a drop of coffee in it. Färbchen Kaffee, they called it. And they would tell me fairy tales. And of course they weren't that critical of society at that time. But there were certain things that they avoided, of course. They were happier together there when my grandfather was not there. When they were just there together, and they would sit there they had like a place that was covered, called a veranda, and they had a table there, and they would be in the summertime they would be sitting there looking out and into the large garden. And we had the Harlequin Great Dane there, and I was there, and that was the most peaceful time in my life. So that was the time before the storm, before things got really bad, before the abuse and all of that. I think that was a good time. So my parents left me there a lot, and they went on long vacations. And my grandfather went on long vacations as well, and so that was good. I wish they had taken me to Jiddu Krishnamurti and to Ojai, California, and stayed there with me and let me grow up there. That would have been so much better. But anyway, my grandfather, she always told me this one fairy tale, Sterntaler, and it directly translates to star coin. So a little girl with the name Star Coin. But apparently I researched it, so the fairy tale in the United States is called Star Money. And so now I had my term that I was looking for. I was looking for the term. And the term is Star Money Syndrome. Okay, so now I'm going to explain what Star Money Syndrome is, because that is what I have. I have Star Money Syndrome. We can also call it Star Coin Syndrome, but let's call it Star Money Syndrome because that is the official version of the fairy tale. That is the official name of that fairy tale. The translation of Gebrüder Grimm from German into English. So Sterntaler is her name, and here is about a summarization of that fairy tale. A little girl, I don't know how old, 8 years old, goes into the forest. Her parents are poor, little bit like Hänsel and Gretel, which is also Gebrüder Grimm fairy tale. All of these fairy tales are very problematic for today's ethics standards. Parents are poor, then they send the children into the forest to find whatever. They find firewood, or they make their children work, which is very unethical. So Sterntaler goes out into the forest all by herself, which is very dangerous because obviously there are wild animals, there are some bears, and we don't know how they react to the children. Usually, I think bears react very friendly to children, and they recognize children as babies, as innocent little babies that need to be protected. So there was the case, I talked about this before, in real life. A little boy got lost in a forest. He walked away from his home. He was like 4 years old. He couldn't find back, and a mother bear protected him from the cold for like a whole week. And she gave him food even. I don't know how she did it. But the little boy survived this. And I guess the bear helped him find his way back home. So bears are smarter than people actually think. Bears are very, very smart beings, okay? Very, very, very intelligent animals, and very kind and very, very deeply compassionate. So particularly a mother bear who sees another baby animal or baby human will take the custody over that baby and will make sure that baby survives, will give that baby warmth. She wraps her whole body around the baby at night. She will nurse the baby, she will feed the baby and protect the baby from everything. So people need to understand this. So but, during the Middle Ages, I guess human trafficking wasn't that widespread yet throughout the globe. There were much less people on the planet. There was just a fraction of the people that are there today. Okay, so that's why we have so much urban sprawl and logging of forests and stuff like that. Back then they had gigantic, wide and vast forests. Even in Europe, which in Europe everything's populated now. It's like New York. Okay, that's how Europe is. So, but in the past, the girl goes out into the forest. She can't find her way back, and she walks down the different paths through the forest, the paths of the animals, and she doesn't know what to do now. But then an animal walks by her and asks her if she can give him some food, and she gives him food. And then she keeps walking, and then a beggar passes by her and says, "I'm cold, can you give me your jacket?" And she gives him her jacket. And more and more beings pass by her and ask her if she can give them this or that thing that she had with her. Backpack and food and clothes, even her underwear, her shoes, her hat, everything she is giving away, every single thing, until she is just naked alone in the forest, an 8-year-old or 10-year-old little girl. And she stands there crying, and she doesn't know what to do, but she can't say no when someone is in need and is suffering and wants her to help them. And she cannot say no, she has to give everything away. And that is how I am, and that's why I say that is my condition. That's what I have. I have the star money syndrome. I have to give everything away. So, and that's why Paul is afraid. That's why my mother was afraid to give me outright the 50%. She wanted a custodian to get that money and distribute it like in a monthly allowance, and that made me so mad that I'm not showing you. That made me so mad because my aunt wanted to do that. She was willing to do it, and I should have let her do that. But it made me mad because I took offense to it, and that was my ego, and my ego stood in the way of doing this the way my mother wanted to actually do this, right? So, because she knows I have this Sterntaler syndrome, this star money syndrome, I give everything away. And she was terrified that I would give things away, would give all of my inheritance away to a hater or to anyone who asks for help and money. So, I'm not showing you. Okay. Okay. So, yes, in chicken. So, and that's why, and it is a problem. It is a big problem. People with Williams syndrome have that, interestingly. But I don't have Williams syndrome. But I still have these very large oversized amygdala in the brain. And oversized amygdala in the brain stands for extreme generosity and extreme empathy. Like empathy that is so extreme that it can ruin someone's life. And it has happened many times where people ruined their lives because of too much empathy. So, I'm not showing you. Not showing. Okay. And Paul is very worried about this. And now this is very, very bizarre. Because he had a mother like that. She didn't have Williams syndrome. She had exactly what I have. She has oversized amygdala and star money syndrome, just like me. And do you understand the odds of him having had a mother like me? Not only did she have that, she also looked like me too. So he showed me photos of her, and she looked just like me when she was young. So compared to her photo of her at 25 compared to the photo of me at 25, almost identical. Shocking, actually. Same facial features, same facial expression, same eye color, same hair color. I used to have dark brown hair with waves. She did too. Exactly like identical twins, almost. I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. So people saw her photo in the shelf and they thought that was me. Why is Nicola dressed with these old-fashioned clothes from the 50s? So, oh my gosh. So I thought that was absolutely significant. And it's not a coincidence, because there are no coincidences. Nothing in the world is a coincidence. Everything happens because something else precedes it that pushes it into that direction. Okay. And that's a fact. And it is very, 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 very strange and very, very metaphysical, to say the least. And now he always felt the need to protect his mother from her own actions. His whole life was like this. And it's very tragic when he can't even be a child and has to feel like he needs to protect his mother from herself. He couldn't trust anyone else. He could only trust his mother and as a person, and then he couldn't even trust her actions, that not because they were not trustworthy, they were because they were reckless. So she was a super kind-hearted person, trustworthy person, but her actions were putting herself in danger and the whole family and him too, but incidentally. So, and that made him always feel very insecure financially. He's always worried about the future. How is this going to work? And he feels the same with me. And then they were torturing me. My brother was doing real systematic psychological attacks on me in recent years, about 10 years ago, and that kept increasing. Systematic psychological attacks, because he's a master manipulator. I don't know how he manages that, because he doesn't have a very high IQ, but he managed to coach me with these psychological attacks into getting so mad that I said, I'm quitting, I'm terminating my bank account, I don't want your allowances anymore, I don't want the child support anymore, give it all to my brother, I don't want it. I had like a nervous breakdown. At that time I thought I was doing the right thing, and my therapist told me also to do this, because she said you don't want to be dependent on them anymore. You don't want them to have this type of psychological, it's like a psychological power over you, leverage or something, like a psychological last word, or some kind of, that gave him the right to insult me, or the right to bully me around. And by giving that up, I made myself, so to speak, independent, but I was not independent. I just gave up that money that I was getting, which Paul, of course, declared as extremely stupid, a stupid move. And it made him so mad, he said it made him sick in the stomach that I did that. So we had a lot of fights about this. But I suffer from the star money syndrome. So, and I either give everything away out of kindness, or I get bullied into it, and then I finally say, go ahead and give it all to my brother, because I don't want your allowances anymore. I don't, because if it comes with the price of being bullied by all of you, of being mistreated. And my mother has mistreated me. I don't know why she did it. My dad has also been very insensitive towards me, and rude, and my brother was downright hostile and did psychological attacks on me. I mean, like bullying into screaming at me with a red lobster face and all of that. I mean, really, really bad for my political opinions and all of that. So it was so bad that I finally said, oh, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to talk to any of you anymore. I don't want your money anymore. Leave me alone. I'm done with all of this. I don't want the money if it means I have to be bullied. So there is some merit to this. There's some. It does make sense psychologically, but I should stand above this and say, no, I will continue to take the money because we need the money. Okay, we desperately need the money for better food, for nutrition, for better dog food, for better daily maintenance of everything. Okay, of course. I mean, to pass up $2,000 a month, that's pretty stupid. It's a stupid move to make. But I was in so much despair. I had just lost my beloved dogs. First Kenny, and then 3 years later, the Papa dog. Okay, and after I lost the Papa dog, I was so devastated. I was in such bad mental state that I had a couple of suicide attempts. It was so bad. It was so incredibly. I thought, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with any of this. I'm too sensitive for it. But that's not Williams syndrome, okay? So I'm a highly philosophical thinker. So I'm a critical thinker. I question things. I'm a social critic. I'm an intellectual. But we can have all kinds of combinations like this. We can suddenly have someone who is an intellectual and still has this star money syndrome. Okay, you don't have to be retarded to have star money syndrome. So these things are not necessarily always combined with Williams or whatever, or Down syndrome, or any of those things. But Williams and Down syndrome come with star money syndrome. It's a kind of incidental package. But star money syndrome can come individually also with someone with an average IQ, which I have. So I think my IQ could have been much higher if I didn't have mercury poisoning as a child, so from the amalgam fillings. So my brother and I, we were constantly swallowing amalgam fillings, swallowing them with chewing candy and stuff like that. With Werther's original German caramel chew candy. They would pull those fillings right out, and then we would swallow all of that and sometimes crumpled up in powder, and that's not good for your nervous system. Okay, no, that is not good. There's lead in it. Okay, there's all kinds of stuff in it. There's plutonium, strontium 90, you name it. It's all mixed into the amalgamation of the amalgam dental fillings. There's mercury in it. It's the second most toxic poison on earth. Okay, it causes neurological damage. Okay, it causes long-term damage. It takes a long time until the brain recovers from it. So, but it does recover, but it takes a very, very long time. I was so confused as a child. I would pass out in between the school classes, and in the hallway I felt like a truck was driving over me. Those are all symptoms of amalgam dental poisoning. So that's why it was already outlawed in Germany 20 years ago, because it happened to many children. And people finally understood what was going on. It took them a long time. So then it was still done here in the United States. And I warned Paul about it, and he didn't listen. And then he had the dentist put amalgam fillings in. Then he something happened. The filling got evaporated into his mouth, and then he had real bad mercury poisoning for many years that went on. It was awful, awful bad. Then we went to the dentist that did the class action lawsuit against the American Dental Association, Dr. Rhoda. Okay, we went to him. We had our last fillings removed safely at his office. The nicest man on earth. He gave me a hand kiss. Wonderful man and courageous to take that on. So there are not very many lawyers. I'm surprised he could even find a lawyer that would take this on, because you have the entire mafia against you with this. It's not easy. I mean, it can be a life-threateningly dangerous thing to do, to take that on, because you know how the mafia works. They take people out. They eliminate loose ends. They eliminate whistleblowers, and it's really bad. So I hope Dr. Rhoda is doing well. I hope he made progress with this lawsuit. So, but I think it's outlawed now in many states. So I don't know how far they have gotten there with that, but you know, if you are interested in being healthy, do not have amalgam, these mercury dental fillings put into your mouth. That is a sure fact, okay? But yeah, I have star money syndrome. I am too generous. I have large amygdala. I have extreme compassion. I have very, very, very extremely high level of oxytocin and estrogen, very high levels of it. I'm a mother animal. I am an animal mother. I'm a star money animal mother, and Paul's mother was too. And these people are very, very, very rare. Okay, those are super empaths. They're very, very, very rare. That's like one in a million or 1 in 2 million people that have that. So most people have the opposite. Most people are takers. Okay. That's a fact. Okay, we can clearly observe that. We don't need to listen to a scientist telling us this. We don't need someone coming up with a statistical evaluation to tell us that. We can already observe that ourselves. So just think about the amount, the number of times you have been shystered, then you already know. Okay, so most people are the opposite, obviously. So, but I'm not showing you. But
show the baby dog.
Yeah, I can't show the baby dog. Then I will show you. It will show you too while I'm showing baby dog. So, but I already showed the baby dog. So, but anyway, so the star money syndrome is real, okay? It exists, but it's very, very rare. It doesn't happen very often. So, it is quite something. In the past, I thought everyone was like this because I'm always projecting. I think, so this is how I am, that is how everyone must be, because I consider myself average. And then gradually over the years, I figure out how other people are not like me. They don't think like me. They think very differently, actually. And then I hear other people, I hear gurus say things like, no, we're actually down to the core, we're all very similar. Bullshit. It's not true. It isn't true. Okay? So, that doesn't mean I'm a saint. I've made mistakes too. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I have been insensitive here and there out of ignorance. I've made mistakes out of ignorance. I thought money comes out of the vending machine, out of the ATM machine, out of the food vending machine. It comes out of the Las Vegas coin machines. Yeah, it's sickening. So, it's getting cold. The heater. I need you to turn the heater on again.
Okay.
It's cold. Why did you turn the heater off?
Okay.
I had the heater on earlier. Why did you turn it off? That's the turning off the heater syndrome that he has. It's also a very annoying mental illness. Very, very annoying. Something I would never do. I mean, I care about my family, my immediate family here. We want to have it warm. So I see that, like the frog in the pond, I'm getting colder and colder and colder. I'm starting to shiver. My hands are ice cold, and it's like, dang! He turned the heater off. I look, and there it is. The heater is off. My gosh. He turned it off again to save money. Yay! We save a few dollars. But we have a bladder infection in the meantime. But then you spend the dollars you save on suffering and cranberry supplements. So wouldn't it be better to not save the money? Then you don't have to buy the cranberry supplements, right? That would save you time in the process. You can do something better with your time. You know, all the time you spend arguing, yelling, you turned the heat off and getting mad, fighting over it, just to save a few dollars. And not the star dollars. Okay? So, no, it's what it is. It's what it is. Yes. This is what it is. But anyway, so what else did I want to say? Yes, baby duck, I'm sorry. Yeah, my feet are cold. I'm getting irritated. This is not fun. I'm making a video. Oh, let's make sure that everything is ice cold while you're making a video. Let's make sure I make a whole lot of sounds and I walk back and forth 50 times while you're making a video. Just to make sure the video is as interrupted as it possibly gets. You know, with other people, they will walk by and they don't get mad like, turn it off. They don't do that, right? Then I don't have a problem if someone walks by 100 times, right? But when they're mad and pissed, like turn it off, every time with this. No, that pisses me off too, yeah? And that interrupts the video flow like nothing else would, you know. And turning the heater off, that's not fun. That is not fun. That is not fun at all. Not at all. turn it into a laughable anecdote. What else can I do? You know, I can't do anything else. I'm stuck here. So, financially dependent on Paul. It's not fun. So, I don't wish that on anyone. I don't wish on anyone to be stuck with Paul. I really don't. Every day he yells at me. Every day. He wouldn't do that while the camera is on. Okay, so as soon as the camera is off, then the yelling begins. Every day, for hours and hours, until I say, if you don't stop, I'm going to pack my backpack and leave. Then he'll say, you're not going to make it very far. You're going to be homeless. Where are you going to go? No one's going to hire you. You're incapable. That's what he always says. You're incapable. He's constant berating, constant put down, constant unempowering. Constantly. While I empower people, he unempowers people. It's out of insecurity, has deep insecurity. Okay. He's terrified that I could leave him. My mother always used to say, then why is he treating you like this if he's so terrified to lose you? But that's exactly why he's treating me like this. Okay, it's incidental rather than calculated, of course. If he was more calculated, he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't treat me like this because he would know the outcome. So, but you can't help it. Anger, frustration, fear. That always all leads to this behavior. And it's the wrong behavior. It's not how you treat your best friend. Okay? And that's what we are supposed to be, best friends. But certainly not lovers. Not anymore. Okay. Ever since 2010. This is a long time in celibacy. It's a long time. Can you imagine living for 16 years in celibacy? Can you imagine? Can you imagine the sexual frustration and the hunger and the need for Ashtar and and the star money? Okay, so now I just want to get to the point now where actually the term star money or Sterntaler, the star coins, where they're coming from. They're falling from the sky. That's why they're called star coins in that fairy tale. So when she's naked in the forest, had given everything away, she's cold and she's crying and no one comes to her help. Everyone was just taking from her, but they didn't mean to hurt her. They were just suffering themselves. And she felt so much empathy for everyone. Dangerous empathy. It can be too much, right, in a situation because it can kill a person. And it has happened before. George Price, a psychologist, gave everything away. He died from hypothermia in England. I'm not making this up. This is an actual story. He had star money syndrome. Okay, it was a psychological experiment that turned into complete star money syndrome overboard. So, yeah, he killed himself that way. It's unbelievable how someone can do something like this. I mean, I couldn't go that far. So no, I'm too selfish for that. So no, I'm. You gotta be selfish to some degree for your own body and mind protection, right? You have to stack up your boundaries. You have to say, if you continue to berate me like this, I'm gonna pack up and leave. And then later on I feel guilty that I'm using the blackmailing technique to protect myself or to stack up my boundaries. But what other choice am I left with than that? Okay, you tell me. what other choice I'm left with. If you're too nice to people, they will walk on you like a rock. And he does too. He doesn't even realize it. He criticizes other people for that, but he does it too. He has a lot in common with the very person he criticizes. So it's a double standard type of thing that happens a lot. But anyway, the star child, the Starmani syndrome child, Sterntaler, is naked in the forest and crying and doesn't know how to proceed with things, and getting cold, and the sun is going down. But all of a sudden, the infinite cosmos rains down golden coins from the sky through the trees into the forest. And now she has all these golden coins, and she can go back to her parents. I don't know if she finds her way. I forgot now the exact details of that story, how the story ended with that. But everything was saved. She was saved in the end, because she got all these golden coins that fell from the sky, and I don't know how she made it back to her parents and gave her parents all these coins, and then they were happily ever after. That's the end of that story. I forgot now the details, how she found her way back to her parents, and how they were able to pick up all these coins. There were like baskets and baskets full of these golden coins that she was then able to bring home to her parents. So my version of the fairy tale would be Ashtar from the Galactic Federation sees her and feels sorry for her, comes with his Vimana and rains down golden coins. The Starmani coins. The Galactic Federation currency coins. The Galactic Bitcoins. With a dog photo on it, with a dog face embossed into the coin, with the baby dog's face in it. Dogge coin from the sky. Okay, that is my version of the fairy tale. And then Ashtar comes down and picks up the girl and brings her into the spaceship, the Vimana. This is like it's one of these little crafts that are out there to, I guess, reconnaissance crafts or something, that are out there to explore, a little explorer craft. And he brings her back to the mothership, and there they give her a bath, they let her soak in the jacuzzi, and they give her a massage, and they put on Galactic Federation clothes, and she gets good nutrition, and she has a dragon as a pet, and her own Barbie doll room, and all of that, and is taken care of by Ashtar. And once she gets old enough, once she becomes 18 on her 18th birthday, Ashtar, who never ages, by the way, he always looks like 25. When she gets 18, and maybe they're even able to put her on a light table, on a med bed. Light table, they have the light table technology that they're gonna introduce to this planet very gradually, because if they did it too fast, people would freak out, because people are not used to it. That is, where does this technology come from? Oh, why didn't they use this? There'll be riots and all of that. why didn't they use it before? You criminals, should have used it before, and all of that, That's how people are. Why can't we just take some charge of our own freaking health, okay? Instead of blaming everyone else for it. So Paul blames other people. I always remind him, you're on your own. You should take charge of your health. That's why we're here. This is a soul school experience. We are the ones. It's up to us to make our life good, not to other people. Other people are not the ones that owe us everything, or the Galactic Federation people. They don't owe us anything. We are here voluntarily in this existence to learn and make our own life better. That also means standing up for our boundaries all the time. Trust me, you have to stand up for your boundaries non-stop. If you live with someone like Paul, or a hater or something, you wouldn't last for a week with a hater. They would tie me up in the dungeon and finish me off in a week. So, that's not even a question, right? But to live with the average douchebag, okay, you have to stand up for your boundaries non-stop, okay? You cannot stop standing up for your boundaries. This is soul school, baby, okay? This is what we need to learn, okay? Have to learn it. His life's mission is to learn to respect other people's and other animals' boundaries. He doesn't respect other people's boundaries. He'll come to the baby dog with a flashlight on his head, and he will put his face in the baby dog's face. He does it with all animals. Puts his beard, forces his beard in their face, because he likes the way it feels. But the animals don't like the way that feels, right? And I get mad and I say, stop doing that. They don't like it. And he does it, and he used to do that with me when I first was together with him in LA long time ago. In 2000, we would cuddle, and he would kiss me, and he would force his beard into he has very, very borsty beard, like a wire brush, and he would force his beard into my face, and afterwards my entire face was swollen, red, and breaking out, until I finally said, I've had enough. I'm not putting up with this anymore. I can't kiss you anymore. It's not gonna work. So, and then he kept doing it to the dogs, and they hated it. They made annoyed sounds like we don't like this. The horses didn't like it. No animal wants that. Not even a pig wants. And pigs have kind of borsty hair. Okay, so themselves, but they wouldn't like that. I used to tell Kenny Pollock, his cousin, that Ludwig does not want Paul put his beard in his face, because Ludwig doesn't have a beard. And Kenny Pollock would laugh and laugh and laugh about that. He thought that was so funny, because Kenny does not have a beard. No, Kenny, that was our Harlequin Great Dane. He had two Harlequin Great Danes, Ludwig and Samantha. And then we had Kenny. Kenny was an albino Great Dane. And then we had Papa Dog, the European Basset Hound. And Kenny was a European Great Dane from the Ukraine. And Ludwig and Samantha were US-based Harlequin Great Danes. Yeah, those were our dogs, and we miss them infinitely much. Yeah, Paul has a good side, and he has an average douchebag side. So both, and it's very difficult. So And I care about him very deeply. I want him to be happy. I want him to heal himself. I don't want him to have all of these decreping illnesses, diabetes and muscular dystrophy and esophagus problems. All of these horrible problems, health problems. Type 2 diabetes is real bad. It killed his mother, and he has food addictions. It's really awful. And he has anger problems and control issues. All of these things. It's very bad. But underneath all of that is someone who deeply cares. An animal rights activist, believe it or not. Someone who signs petitions every day. Someone who covers the baby dog with the sleeping bag 1,000 times per day and more. Every time baby dog shakes himself, the sleeping bag falls off, Paul will sit up and put the sleeping bag back on. Those are the people I want. I can only have those people as friends, you know. And if they also have some bad manners, yeah, then I have to just accept the bad manners. But it's not easy. Okay, so usually humans do not appear on Earth as 100% saintly. So a human is not one of the Galactic Federation people, obviously. A human is not a Pleiadian. A human is not an Andromedan. A human is not an Arcturian. A human is a human. A human is a mixed bag. Okay, literally. With race, with different species even. Okay, so a human contains all kinds of things. A human can also contain Pleiadian. A human can contain a reptilian monster, right? A reptile. Jeffrey Epstein had 80% reptile, apparently, and 20% Bill Gates or something, on that, something in that order. But whatever. I find the reptiles beautiful. That's just my taste. So, but I think the reptiles do not find themselves beautiful. That's from my observations. That's why they hide it. That's why they shapeshift. Because I don't understand how someone can shapeshift from reptile into the appearance of Bill Gates. That doesn't make any sense, but I guess he finds the Bill Gates appearance better than the reptile appearance. That makes no sense to me, being an artist, because, you know, I like the way the reptiles look. So, yeah, so that is my version of the fairy tale. Ashtar comes down and rains down the gold coins and says everything is good now, you're safe. He might not even return the daughter back to the parents because the parents don't know what they're doing, sending the child into the forest. That accounts for child neglect for today's standards, and particularly for the Galactic Federation standards. They have much higher standards yet. So they're kind of like representative of what we can become, what humans can potentially become in the future. Okay, Type 1 civilization, where there is no more war, where there is no more acting out like Bill Gates does and Dr. Fauci. Okay, where there is no more exploitation of beagle dogs and any beings, where all pigs are safe and free. People can have a pig as a pet, but the pig is being treated like a royal king. Okay, so the pig sleeps in bed with them and is clean. Pigs like to be clean. and they like to be free, and they like to be loved. So they don't want to be in a gestation crate. A beagle dog doesn't want to be in a little cage where they twirl around themselves for 24 hours. For 7 years. I didn't know how bad it was. Found out yesterday on X. So people rescued 22 beagle dogs from a research laboratory. And it is shocking to me. There was this real retarded police officer, fat guy. He rates the activists that are on their way out there, and they were already somewhere else. I guess they were already in a different town. They had already brought the dogs to a different town. And this police officer rates them, and they were able to put 22 dogs into safety. They had another dog they were about to put into safety, another beagle dog, and police officer rates them and seizes that rescue dog and puts the people in jail and has that rescued dog brought back to the research lab where they torture him more. Can you imagine? And the one activist said rightly, he said directly in his comment on X, he said to the police officer, if you are that dead or something like on the inside to put the activists in prison and bring a rescued dog that is shivering in pain and fear, bring that rescued dog back to the abusers, to that factory where he gets tortured more, then you should lose your license. You should lose your law enforcement's license. And that's absolutely spot on, that statement. Absolutely, I'm behind that statement. These people, these police officers that have absolutely no heart, no brain to sabotage good work like this and endanger animals, bringing them back to the abusers, these people should lose their licenses. Absolutely 100%. I'm ending the video now with this. Peace and love for all living beings.